on your AM dial, WMEL, and online at 1300WMEL.com. Sponsored by AVET Project. Can I live again? I don't even know it's real. It was horrifying life on the battlefield. Seen a lot of soldiers down on the front lines. Bombs going off when we drive by. Can I live again? I don't even know it's real. It was horrifying life on the battlefield. Seen a lot of soldiers down on the front lines. Bombs going off when we drive by. Yeah, you got questions? Garren and Glenn have answers. Pick up the phone and give them a call. Tell them Soldier I sent you. 321-631-1300.
Welcome to another exciting edition of American Warrior Radio. This is the place to be for news, notes, interviews, and current events for all issues military and veteran related. If you or someone you know has ever worn the uniform of the U.S. Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard, or National Guard or Reserves, you've come to the right place. American Warrior Radio, right here on the Talk to Me station, AM 1300 WMEL, sponsored by AVET Project. This program is all about supporting our troops. So all you patriotic Americans out there, get comfortable and let's kick the tires and light the fires. My name is Garren Cone. I'm the president and founder of AVET Project. I'm an Air Force veteran and a retired legal advocate for veterans. But as always, I'm not flying through the airwaves alone.
Good morning. I'm Glenn McGuffie, manager of your Brevard County Veteran Service Team, and I'm retired Air Force, so we got a couple blue suiters coming at you today. We got a guest or two, special guest or two coming at you over the airways. It's going to be an exciting show. As always, please when you get a chance, when you go for that next cup of coffee, get a piece of paper and a pencil handy. We're going to pass you out some important information, and you may want to take notes. I have to take notes anymore. I can't remember everything.
We encourage your involvement today. Like Glenn said, we've got a couple call-in guests, and one of the folks you've heard before happens to be the Chief Operating Officer of the Florida Veterans Foundation, Steve Holmes. Steve, are you there?
Hey, I am, Glenn, and Garren, good to be with you again.
Well, thanks for joining us. We've got a robust program today, and we wanted to bring you on first because of a very important topic, something that's going to affect not just military communities, but essentially anyone and everyone across the spectrum in the United States. And, Glenn, the topic of the day is?
Topic of the day is Veterans Court, and Brevard is in the midst of planning stages to set one up here. And we thought Steve had some good information about this, and we want to talk to him about that. And I think you had a list of things here that we put together to go over with you, Steve. So I'll let Garren start off here.
Well, Steve, again, thanks for joining us. Just for the benefit of the folks that haven't heard you before on American Warrior Radio, give us a little bit of background on who you are and what you do with the FVF, the Florida Veterans Foundation.
Okay, I'm a retired Marine, and right now I'm the Chief Operations Officer for the Florida Veterans Foundation, and we serve and support and advocate for Florida veterans. And so we really are privileged to be with you here. I know the last couple times, Garren and Glenn, but this time to talk veterans treatment courts because it does affect some of our Marines, sailors, soldiers, etc., who may be getting into some trouble due to issues overseas.
Well, and it's important that folks understand this isn't just about a specific segment of society. What we're going to discuss here today, at least in this first segment of AWR, American Warrior Radio, is the impact the Veterans Treatment Court can have on society at large. You're a busy man. You're flying all over the state, or at least driving, and I appreciate your efforts, but we were able to get together and meet for a short time here a couple days ago in Tallahassee, and the Florida Veterans Foundation was blessed with a generous donation from Allied Veterans, and that's going to enable us, you as the COO and me as a Deputy Director, to help more vets and their families. That was a pretty good meeting we had, yes?
It was a great meeting, and we really appreciate the Allied veterans stepping up and understanding the various needs that we have for veterans around the state and able to support us as we support veterans young and old.
And I think with that donation, and folks can read more about it, you go to avetproject.org. That's on the web, avetproject.org. Click on the Facebook. There'll be lots of news and notes and some photos and even some really neat, spiffy interviews that we conducted up there during the ceremony and the meetings. But it's going to enable the FVF, Florida Veterans Foundation, to do even more outreach, and particularly addressing this issue, which is near and dear to our hearts here. But the general public may not have a sense. We say Veterans Court. That's kind of nebulous. Give us some, define that for us.
Okay, the Veterans Treatment Courts are really a product of a number of judges over the last couple of years who began seeing more and more of our, primarily our young returning veterans from Iraq and Afghanistan. They were coming into the courts, and when they left overseas, these judges knew these young men and women, and they were good kids, and they came back with post-traumatic stress disorders, traumatic brain injury, maybe abusing substances, and they were finding themselves in trouble with the law and in front of these judges. And these judges began to realize, we didn't quite treat our Vietnam veterans as we should when they came back from Southeast Asia, and maybe we should be treating these veterans for their illnesses that they received in a combat situation instead of incarcerating them. So there's been a national movement over the last couple of years, and currently there's about 75 to 80 veteran treatment courts, and the primary purpose is, one, to hold the veteran accountable for their actions. They're not being let off. But the next purpose is to treat that veteran for the illness that they received, primarily, as we said, post-traumatic stress disorders, depression, traumatic brain injuries, substance abuses. Treat them, and if they complete the program, then their records could be expunged or reduced sentences, etc. So I think we have learned from our Vietnam veterans, because if we look around, we still have some Vietnam veterans who have been victims of some of their illnesses as they came back from overseas. And they're primarily some of our homeless. I mean, the homeless populations, jail populations are still have some of these veterans in it, and it's a shame. Let's treat our veterans.
Exactly. And Glenn, you've got some information on one of the pioneers on this Veterans Court.
Yeah, actually, this is pretty interesting. This is from Judge Robert Russell, presiding judge of the Buffalo Drug Court, Buffalo Mental Health Court, and
up there in New York State.
Up there in New York, way up there in New York State, and established the first veterans treatment court in the United States. And he recognized the unique consequences combat call for a unique solution, that the standard solutions aren't working anymore, particularly in the, as you were saying, Steve, with these veterans who were suffering from combat-related problems, traumatic brain injury or post-traumatic stress disorder. The mental problems sometimes are the real culprit here, leading to uncontrollable actions on their part, or actions they don't care about controlling anymore because of their distaste for society, I guess, is one of the problems of post-traumatic stress disorder, particularly in the more severe cases. But he established this court, and because a growing number of veterans were appearing on his dockets for many misdemeanor-type actions, and I think isn't this targeted initially, Steve, at the misdemeanor crowd, not people who are accused or
the violent felonies
and that kind of stuff?
Right. The initial ones were for misdemeanors, but as the program has expanded across the state, there have been some judges that say, hey, let's look at some nonviolent felony charges. Let's look at some other types of charges. So there's a laboratory for a number of different courts out there that are looking at how can we treat these veterans by incarcerate them.
And I think that's an important point to make. And Glenn, you touched on it, as did you, Steve. If it's just a service member that was discharged regularly from the service and goes out and commits one of these crimes, which we're going to talk about the Florida Senate's initiative here in a moment, but this is pertaining to combat vets. Am I reading that right?
For the legislation in Florida that was introduced by Representative Nelson and Senator Bennett, yes, the bill is for combat veterans who have acquired and post-traumatic stress disorder, traumatic brain injury, as we discussed.
So that's important. That's an important distinction. They're on the battlefield. They're undergoing that constant stress, or they witness something above and beyond the normal realm of human experience, and they end up with a mental disorder, a condition, whether it's PTSD, depression, maybe even TBI, that traumatic brain injury, then this may be a program that can help them.
Correct. And really requires the effort of each local jurisdiction. You're talking about the efforts of the state's attorney, the efforts of the court, the efforts of the public defender, the efforts of the VA, and the VA is the crucial aspect of this. And that's, people may say, well, why do we need a veterans treatment court when we have drug courts, we have health courts, we have regular courts? Why? What's so significant about a veterans treatment court? Well, that's the main element is the veteran does. Studies show that the veteran does better when the veteran is around other veterans, and therefore linking that veteran to VA services and getting that veteran those VA services, and it's quite a benefit for the local jurisdiction. If I'm a county commissioner and I'm thinking, do I pay for these substance abuse or mental health program from a county budget or from the court, or can I link these individuals to the VA and allow the federal government to pay for treatment for our young men and women? I know where I would come down.
Yeah, and I think that's an excellent point, that veterans do respond better when they're around other veterans, and that's kind of I think the basis of some of these support groups that the mental health people in the VA run on a regular basis to help out our veterans who have been diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder or suffer from TBI, or, as Garren says, depression or some other mental health issue. And I agree, the VA plays a large part here, and so they should, because they're really the experts in dealing with this combat-related type issues. There may be post-traumatic stress disorder, and there certainly is post-traumatic stress disorder out there in our civilian community, but it's not caused by the same factors, and it doesn't have the same commonality that veterans have when they get into the same group of people.
And I think we can all agree that the federal government, whether it's a National Guard unit that was brought up and called on to go fight in combat, the federal government is the one that is charging our troops with going over and fighting these wars. They should shoulder the responsibility of the financial needs and including the treatment when they get back. I mean, the counties and the states play a part in that, but my goodness, the VA, as you mentioned, Glenn, they've got the expertise, and by far they should shoulder the financial aspect of this.
And yeah, and I don't know that seems to be a topic of hope at the moment, but certainly something to be pursued, I think, and it is the way it should be, I think, and at least there should be some significant financial help from the VA with these veterans treatment courts, and I think they've been around long enough that I was reading some articles where there are some success stories of people graduating, if you will, from the treatment programs and having their sentences expunged or reduced, as the case may be. And I'm looking forward to that. What do you think people should do towards soliciting the feds to come up with some more money to support this, Steve?
Well, one of the main things is let your legislators know your feelings on these veterans treatment courts. Study it. We can post some information out there. Study these veterans treatment courts. But let your legislators know, hey, let's treat these our veterans, and let's don't incarcerate them. Let's don't treat them the way we treated our Vietnam veterans, some of our Vietnam veterans. tell your legislators what's going on. Talk to your county commission. Go to your county commission. Go to your courts. Go to your public defender. Go to your state attorney. Tell them your feelings of these Veterans Treatment Courts. Make it a community. It needs to be a community project, and to determine exactly what types of either misdemeanors or nonviolent felonies, or what is it that community, that your community in Brevard, really, how do you want to address this issue? And so I really applaud the efforts going on in Brevard County and the Circuit 18 area, and I hope really it continues, because we have some legislation coming up this year, like I said, Representative Nelson and Senator Bennett, that really facilitates allows all counties to establish a diversion program for our veterans.
Well, let's talk about that for a moment. Why is the general public that may not have any relationship with a service member or past service member or what have you, why is it important for these folks to get involved, in, particularly on a local level and on a grassroots level? What impact will letting the system as it is just play out with the problems that are coming up? In other words, what are some of the big problems that can impact every listener from Oregon to Maine to Florida here regarding veterans coming back from combat and doing these things? Why should they get involved?
Well, why should they get? I mean, one of our veterans that went over and they fought for our freedom. They have committed their lives to fighting for us, keeping us free, and one of our responsibilities is to help them as they come back. They may, if a person came back with a wound, a physical wound, we would be supporting them 100%. If they come back with an invisible wound, because we don't see it, we don't understand the impacts of that invisible wound on behavior, which may cause some of these individuals to react as they do to get in front of the law enforcement. So we have a humanitarian, I think, aspect of helping our veterans. But we also, from a fiscal standpoint, especially our fiscal state that we are in at all levels of government, by supporting the Veterans Treatment Court program, you can use local dollars now for more local issues. If you can get the feds to pay for what the feds should be paying for, then you can use those substance abuse and mental health dollars for other needs within the community.
Oh yeah, excellent point. Excellent sales point. As a matter of fact, for people out there, I hope you're listening. That's the way to talk it up with your legislators, I think. And I know TBI is, of course, the signature wound of the OIF, and OEF, and
it's one of those invisible.
And that's one of those invisible wounds. And people on the battlefield get the concussion, and I've gone to many trainings on this, and they, pick themselves up and continue with the fight, and it's many months later that this stuff, you took your fragile little brain and rattled it around in this hard shell thing called a skull, and it does some damage that then creates those kind of problems. So there's a definite need out there. Back to the bill just for a minute, Steve. What do you think the opportunity or chances are for support here throughout the legislatures? Do you have any feel for that at this point? I know it's early stages.
Well, it's early. This bill was refiled from last year. It was introduced, and it fell out in the last few days of legislation because of the activities going on in the legislature. It was not voted down. It just didn't get to the final steps. So they've refiled it. And interesting, you mentioned the traumatic brain injury. The bill is actually called the T. Pat Maney Veterans Treatment Intervention Act. And Judge Maney, who I'll be with here in a few minutes here in Okaloosa County, was a survivor of traumatic brain injury from his service in Afghanistan. So and he can tell you a lot about the efforts. So he by experiencing traumatic brain injury, knowing what it did to him, and also as he is a judge, he's able to see both sides of the fences. So I think the state has done a great job with Representative Nelson and Senator Bennett of introducing this bill to allow the counties to nutrition programs to support our veterans.
Yeah, and we're particularly blessed here, I feel, from my point of view anyway, that our judge, John Murphy, who's heading up the effort to start the Veterans Treatment Court here, is a retired Army colonel. So, and he's from the Vietnam situation, and he certainly knows and appreciates the need for this, and is a driving force behind it. And that's folks, that's veterans stepping up in leadership roles in your community. And you know, another day we'll talk about why you should hire veterans, because they make great people and leaders.
And Glenn, aren't you serving on the committee that's forming the Brevard Veterans Court?
Yes, I am. I'm honored to be on that committee, and we're looking to see where we will best fit in as the County Veteran Service Office, and what our role, where we can be most effective with it. And you know, it's early days yet, but I know we have a role in there with filing claims for these people, and identification. I don't know. That's still to be worked out. That's one of the harder parts of this program, I think, is who's going to do the identification of eligibility. But you know, every new program has to go through its steps and its rigors and
the growing pains.
Try this and it doesn't work, and try this, it does work. Sort of trial and error thing. That's just that's the process of these great new ideas. So I'm really excited to see that come, and Judge Murphy is shooting to have this in place and active the early part of next year, the early part of next calendar year.
And Steve, before we go, we're coming to the bottom of the hour, and I know you've got a really busy day ahead of you today, even on the weekend. I know how hard you work for the Florida Veterans Foundation. How can folks get in touch with you and discuss this further, or look to support Florida Veterans Foundation?
Well, they can go to our website at www.floridaveteransfoundation.org, or they can become a fan on Facebook. And right now we're doing a lot of our work on Facebook because we're in the middle of a redesign for our website. So stay tuned on the website, but engage us on the Facebook.
45 seconds.
Call us at our office at 850-487-1533.
One more time, 850-487-1533. Steve Holmes with the Florida Veterans Foundation, thank you so much for joining us today on American Warrior Radio. We'll look forward to future segments. Have a great day, and thanks again.
Thank you, Glenn and Garren. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Folks, don't leave. We're going to take a little break here. Listen, there's an important announcement coming up during the middle of the break. See you on the other end.